So I come to tell you He's alive, to tell you that He dries every tear that falls.
Hey everybody, this is Clint Louie coming to us with 5 minutes from friendship. Appreciate you being with me today. You ever planted a garden? Have you ever worked the ground? You ever sown the seed? Well, you know, the Bible teaches us that there are laws of sowing and reaping. That's right, there are laws. Just like you've got laws of nature, thermodynamics, or that type of thing, you know, law of gravity. Well, there's also the law of sowing and reaping. And there are things that affect sowing and reaping. And the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 9 and verse 6, "But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly. And he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully." God says our sowing affects our reaping. And so we want to deal today with the law of sowing and reaping. The laws of sowing and reaping. And you know, I'm reminded of one time when Mr. Charles Haddon Spurgeon, pastor of the Metropolitan Tabernacle in London many, many years ago, they had to raise money for something. I don't know what it was, but they had to raise some money. They always had something going on. By the way, it's a good thing. We always ought to have something going on for the Lord. And so he told the people, he said, "We need to raise X amount of dollars," however much it was. And a man piped up and said, "Preacher, we better pray about that. We better pray about that first." And Mr. Spurgeon said, "Fine, we'll pray. But first, let's take up an offering." And the idea being that we must pray. We must seek the hand of God. We can't do it without the Lord. But to also just sit around and do nothing and say, okay, you know, the Lord's going to take care of it. No. God will provide the wind, but you better hoist your sail. God will provide and bless, but you better do your part. A little boy brought his lunch to Jesus, and he gave 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Now, those loaves are not big, full-size loaves of bread like you'd buy at the store. They were something like about the size of a Twinkie. Question, how many of us know what a Twinkie is? Well, he gave his little loaves and his little fishes, and he gave them to the Lord. That was his part. God took those loaves and fishes, blessed and multiplied. That was God's part, and fed a multitude. Well, today, I believe we must engage in sowing and reaping. Now, what are those laws? What are the rules of sowing and reaping? Well, number 1, you always reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. For example, if you were to go out and plant seeds for an apple, apple seeds, what kind of tree is going to come from that? Obviously not oranges. Obviously not a blueberry plant, because you reap what you sow. So the question is, if you look around in your life or my life and say, what are you reaping? Well, let's ask this question. What are you sowing? You reap what you sow. Number 2, the second law is you always reap more than you sow. You reap more than you sow. One little bitty seed can produce untold amounts of fruit. You always reap more than you sow. God says, he which soweth bountifully shall reap bountifully. One time 2 men were talking, and one man said, "How is it that you're so blessed?" And the man said, "Well, God shovels it in and I shovel it out." He said, "The only difference is God has a much bigger shovel than I do." And the truth is, you will reap what you sow. You'll also reap more than you sow. And then thirdly, the third law is of sowing and reaping, you will reap later than you sow. You will reap later than you sow. You know, you sow today, you may not receive today, but you'll reap somewhere down the road. Not today necessarily, but somewhere. You'll reap later than you sow. Just like you sow in your garden, it'll take a couple of months for the harvest to come in to maturity. Well, the same is true here. We're going to reap later than we sow. So those are the laws of sowing and reaping. And I want to encourage us, let's be cheerful givers for the Lord. Let's give generously and freely. Open our wallets, and most importantly, open our hearts. And let's get in on the laws of sowing and reaping. This is Clint Louie. May the Lord bless you today.